Flash is supposed to be the fastest man alive. So why does a blue hedgehog from a video game keep beating him in every argument fans have about it? The numbers might surprise you. On paper, Barry Allen's top recorded speed is around 186,282 miles per second, clocked in Flash, Rebirth number 1. That's not a typo. That's a number borrowed from the speed of light itself. Sonic's official top speed, by comparison, is closer to 768 miles per hour, comic accurate, straight from Sonic the Hedgehog number 125. On raw numbers alone, Barry should win this race before Sonic finishes his first step. But speed on a stat sheet and speed in a fight are two very different things. And the deeper you look into how each of them actually moves, the more that easy win for the Flash starts to fall apart. So here's the real question. If the Flash is hundreds of thousands of times faster on paper, what is it about Sonic that keeps closing the gap? Let's break down exactly where this race actually gets decided. Start with the engine behind Barry Allen's speed, the Speed Force. It's not muscle, and it's not technology. It's a metaphysical energy field that powers every speedster in the DC universe, and it comes with rules. The Flash has been shown vulnerable to attacks that target his connection to the Speed Force itself, not his body. In The Flash, Rebirth number 4. Cut him off from it, and his top speed number means nothing. Sonic doesn't have that weakness, because his speed isn't drawn from an external force he can be severed from. According to Sonic the Hedgehog number 200, his speed isn't bound by the same physical laws governing Barry's at all. There's an even more basic limit working against the Flash. He still has to breathe, and his body still has physical mass to push through the air. The Flash, Secret Files and Origins number 2 treats this as a hard constraint, not a footnote. That's the first crack in the Flash wins easily theory. Now here's the second, and it's about something Barry can't train away, his own emotions. The Flash number 105 establishes that Barry's speed is tied directly to his emotional state. He gets faster when he's happy or excited, and measurably slower when he's afraid or upset. His top speed isn't constant. It's conditional. Sonic's speed doesn't have that on-off switch. Sonic the Hedgehog number 100 shows his pace staying consistent no matter his mood, which means in a real race, he's the more reliable engine, even if he's the smaller number. And Barry's emotional vulnerability has actually cost him before. The Flash number 108 shows him beaten by the speedster Savitar, who exploited his connection to the Speed Force directly rather than outracing him in a straight line. So if brute velocity isn't the deciding factor, what is? It comes down to something neither hero's top speed stat captures: how fast they can actually think. Sonic the Hedgehog number 150 depicts him thinking and reacting at superhuman speed, fast enough to make split-second strategy calls and adjust his approach mid-race, not just run in a straight line faster. The Flash's speed, meanwhile, is described in The Flash, Secret Files and Origins number 1 as requiring real mental focus and concentration just to sustain, meaning a distracted or rattled Barry is a visibly slower Barry. Sonic X, Episode 26 shows him using pure agility and quick reflexes to navigate obstacles at full speed without losing momentum. Exactly the kind of terrain that would force the Flash to slow down and recalculate. There's a stranger wrinkle here too, and it has nothing to do with how fast either of them moves. It's about how fast time itself feels to them. Sonic X, Episode 14 frames Sonic's speed as partly perceptual. He experiences time at a different rate than everyone around him, letting him react to things before a normal speed brain would even register them. The Flash's speed, by contrast, can be disrupted by outside factors entirely beyond his control, other speedsters nearby, or speed-altering tech, as established in The Flash number 120. Sonic doesn't carry that liability into the race. Sonic has also survived environments that would end the race for Barry instantly, including the vacuum of space, per Sonic the Hedgehog number 143. The Flash's body still needs the basics: air, gravity, a surface to run on. So strip away the headline numbers, and the race stops looking like raw velocity versus raw velocity. It starts looking like a fight between a brute force engine with a kill switch and a smaller engine with none. Here's the part most Flash wins instantly, arguments skip entirely: how each of them actually builds and holds that speed over the length of a real race. Physics of Superheroes author James Kikilios notes that in a hypothetical foot race, the Flash would need to constantly keep re-accelerating to hold his top speed. He can't just coast on momentum the way a smaller, lighter body can. Sonic, by that same logic, can lean on his own momentum once he's up to speed, using it to his advantage instead of fighting it the whole way, which costs him far less energy over distance than Barry spends. And if the terrain itself becomes the obstacle, Sonic has an answer the Flash would recognize instantly: vibrating his molecules fast enough to phase through solid matter. The same trick speedsters use to cut corners other racers can't. Put the engine problems, the emotional volatility, and the terrain advantage together, and a pattern starts to form, one that has nothing to do with who's faster in a vacuum. Across his comic and TV history, Barry Allen's speed has never been one fixed number. The Flash number 120 and multiple other issues show it shifting with story, mood, and circumstance, which makes him brilliant in short bursts and inconsistent over a full race. Sonic's appeal, across decades of games and movies, has always been the opposite: dependable, controllable speed that the audience, and Sonic himself, can actually rely on under pressure, race after race. That's not to say Barry has no answer. In the 2023 Flash film, he's shown running fast enough to break the time barrier itself, proof that when everything lines up perfectly, his ceiling might be unmatched by anyone, Sonic included. The problem for Barry is that everything lining up perfectly is the exception, not the rule. And a single bad day is all it takes to flip this race. One off moment, one flash of fear, 1 second of doubt, and the Flash, Rebirth number 1 era's headline number stops matching, because his speed was never a fixed stat to begin with. It was a mood. Sonic walks into every race as the same Sonic. No emotional ceiling to hit, no speed force to get severed from, no breathing to manage. Just speed that shows up exactly the same way every single time. And that's before factoring in what Sonic can become under the right conditions. His fully powered-up forms push his limits even further beyond the numbers fans usually quote for him. So who actually wins? It depends entirely on which version of this race you're betting on. In a clean, straight-line sprint where nothing goes wrong and Barry is calm, focused, and fully connected to the speed force, his top-end number wins. There's no contest. 186,282 miles per second is simply a different category of fast. But the moment the race has obstacles, emotional stakes, or anything that goes wrong for even a second, exactly the conditions of basically every real fight either of them has ever been in, the advantage flips to Sonic. That's the part the Flash obviously wins crowd keeps leaving out. A stat sheet and a survivable race are not the same contest. Which means the fastest man alive can lose to a hedgehog, not because he's slower, but because Sonic is built to never have a bad day. It's worth remembering how differently these two were built in the first place, because that explains a lot of this gap. Barry Allen is a forensic scientist struck by lightning and bathed in chemicals, granted the speed-force connection that makes him a living conduit for an external power source. Powerful, but borrowed. Sonic was built from the ground up, since his 1991 debut, as speed itself with a personality attached. Every part of his design exists to make speed feel native to him, not granted to him. That difference in design philosophy is exactly why Sonic keeps closing gaps that should be mathematically impossible. He was never built to need a perfect day to perform. So no, Sonic doesn't out-accelerate the Flash on a stat sheet, and he never will. But stat sheets don't win real races. Consistency, reflexes, and not having an off switch do. And on that scoreboard, the Hedgehog is ahead. Thanks for watching Hero Lore. If you want more breakdowns like this, where we actually dig into the numbers instead of just guessing, subscribe and stick around. Next time, we're settling another argument fans never stop having. See you then.